Welcome, Theatre Addicts. My name is Danielle Benson, and I am here with the cast of Precious Little by Star Theatre, and they are part of the dramatic work series at the Van City Culture Lab. So I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. Would you like to start?
Sure. I'm Elizabeth Holliday.
I'm Therese Champagne.
I'm Sarah Andrina Brown.
And I'm Micah Laulainen.
And thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Everyone just stares at me in terror. We're doing something a little bit different today. We're hanging out outside Performance Works, and we thought we'd just kind of sit in a group and chat. So that's what we're doing. So tell me a bit about, this is part of the dramatic work series, so Precious Little is an existing play. Who wants to tell me a bit about the play itself?
I'll do it. Cool. So Precious Little was written by Madeline George, who is a playwright, an American playwright, a queer playwright, and a well-known playwright who is part of 13P alongside Sarah Rule. There's also a Sarah Rule play in the dramatic work series, so that's pretty neat. But the play itself is the story of Brody, a lesbian linguist who learns unsettling news about the pregnancy that she's carrying and ends up sort of relating to this gorilla at the zoo in order to find comfort in that situation. It's an ensemble piece. We have 3 actors playing 10 fantastic roles in this play, and it's a super fun time. This is Madeline George's only drama amidst a pile of comedies, so it's interlaced with darkly funny moments, but it's going to leave you with a really full heart.
That sounds very exciting. Yeah. I love the dramatic work series because it gives us a chance to see like some very different things, because you kind of got parameters, and as soon as you have some parameters, then you're forced to be creative because you can't just do anything you want. So tell me a bit about why this show, why Precious Little, how did you choose it, how did you cast it, what was that like?
Well, that's me again.
Well, they can talk about their experience in auditions and what they think about the play as well.
We chose the play because Star Theatre has a mandate to do ensemble-driven work, and we wanted to do a show with an all-female cast. So those were 2 defining factors in our search. Why don't you guys talk a little bit about the audition process and why you guys wanted to work on the show?
Well, I can start.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I read about the audition and something in the description caught my eye. So I emailed Micah right away and was excited to be invited to come in and audition. And what I remember the most about the audition process is that it was a ton of fun. I knew right away I was working with a fantastic script, the material was solid, I was in good hands, and it was a safe place to play and explore the text. And because I had so much fun, I guess that's why I ended up here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Totally. How about you guys,
Well, I did a clown workshop with Micah, and I was really delighted when I saw that there was maybe an opportunity to do an audition and maybe work with Micah. And when I read the play, I really loved that for an actress in her 60s, there were such interesting parts. A gorilla, a woman, an elderly woman who finds the language of her youth, a disappearing language, a counselor, a baby. I mean, this play was really a dream for someone like me.
So do you play the gorilla?
I play the gorilla.
That was going to be my next question. Is the gorilla like on stage or not? Oh, that's so exciting.
The gorilla is,
That's going to be fun.
On stage, and you know it's so interesting because this play has an aspect that is very real, and there's an aspect that is more unrealistic, but of the world of the imaginary. And for me, the gorilla has that role in this play in the sense that it's a talking gorilla. It's a gorilla that wears Chanel clothing.
Oh my!
And it's a gorilla that I think the role, in my view, the role in the play is to be the pure being. It's the one that will bring us to see another aspect of life that maybe in the real world, in the world of an intellectual like our main character, Brody, that aspect of life is not revealed very often, but through the ape will bring us elsewhere.
That is cool. Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I have spent the last year really looking for, or like really trying to get involved with like queer scripts with queer playwrights, and so that's what drew me to this piece in the first place. But the audition process was interesting because I got to see my character plays, like I have 5 different characters, and so sort of getting to like look at those sides for the first time and just having to embody these like completely different, like wildly different range of people was like really interesting and really exciting. And I didn't actually get to read the script until after I had already been cast. I was like, I just hope and I could not be more like thrilled with it. It's just been incredible at every turn. So very excited.
Yay. And this is your first mounting of this production at the Vancouver Fringe. You haven't been to any other Fringes beforehand. Do you have any previews?
Well, some of us have done the Fringe before,
Right,
but this particular play has not happened before. Our first show on September 8th will be our first show, our premiere of the production, and it's half price too.
So even more reason to come see it early before it sells out because it's so popular.
That's right.
That's right.
Good. I mean, going to the dramatic work series from a clowning workshop sounds like an interesting journey.
I don't know. I think it's pretty similar because clowning is all about like finding the present moment and finding the like love and the magic and the like nowness of something. And this show is so much about like the immediate and the natural versus like the intellectual or the man-made, and like what is it that's actually going to hold weight and hold space for us? Is it like the language that we create, or is it the communication that we have in other ways?
So the clowning brings you really, really present and probably helps with some of the out-of-the-box kind of more esoteric parts of the play.
Yes,
Totally.
and the physical work, the freedom
Yeah.
of exploration.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, so fun. So some of you have done Fringe before and some of you haven't. Has everyone done Fringe before? Some people haven't. Who has, who hasn't?
I have.
I have.
I have not. First time I will be performing in the Fringe.
Yeah?
Yeah, me too.
Oh, so I've got the first timers right here. No, I'm not scary, I promise. Awesome. So for the old timers, can you tell us about your Fringe experience? The old timers, because you're probably younger than me. Lala. For the old timers, can you tell us about your Fringe experience before, like what shows you were in and what it was like, what your favorite things were?
Sure. So in 2015, Star Theatre did the Dramatic Works series. We did a show called Pornography by Simon Stevens, which was about the 7/7 bombings in London, and it was another ensemble piece. So that show was really successful and a really fun thing to do. And then in 2016, I decided to apply for the CAF Lottery, which is the Canadian Association of Fringe Festivals, and Star Theatre got one of the 10 coveted cross-Canada Fringe tour spots. So I toured the entire Fringe circuit with a show I'd written called Wild Society. And then last year I did a clown and puppet piece called Beaver Dreams, and then this year we're back with Dramatic Works.
Nice.
So that's
kind of gone full circle.
Yeah, so that's sort of Star Theatre's history and my history with Vancouver Fringe and sort of the Fringe circuit at large.
And what's your favorite thing about Fringe?
Oh gosh, it's like taking 2 weeks off to just see as much theater as you can, and some of it's amazing and some of it's not, and it doesn't matter because you're just seeing so much, and no matter what, it's gonna stick with you and you're gonna learn something from it. And sometimes I even prefer seeing the bad shows because you see a mediocre good show and you're like, cool, and you forget about it, but you see something horrifying and it will stay with you for the rest of your life. And then you're gonna see stuff that's just incredible too. And that stuff also, you're gonna think about years later. And so I what I love, I think, the most about the Fringe is the like Fringe binge, where you just see everyone every day, and you see like 6 plays every day, and it's just you like live and breathe theater for 2 weeks.
For sure. Thanks.
Well, I did a Fringe in 2012, right after I did the Vancouver Fringe in 2012, right after finishing theater school. And I was brought on board by my friends Kaz Lasgard and Jenica Grinke, who wrote a show called Smudge. So that show was part of the site-specific Fringe here. It took place at the cement factory under a truck. And in large part, and it was a ton of fun. We had a great time. It was a whirlwind of an experience. And then I came back to Vancouver Fringe in 2014, another site-specific show. This was at Graffiti Alley, which is not too far from the Cultch. And this was a crazy show called We're All Mad Here, where I played the Red Queen, Queen of Hearts, and also Alice in Wonderland. So it was a very twisty take on Alice in Wonderland, kind of dark and crazy, heavy into the physical theater, that piece. So this is my 3rd Fringe here in Vancouver, and it's been a ton of fun. It's certainly a different experience to work with an established script rather than a new devised piece, but an established script that is an ensemble piece, and has been really just such a wonderful, precious experience.
Lovely. And your favorite thing about Fringe?
I have to say the Fringe binge. That's a perfect way to put it. It's a fantastic opportunity to see a ton of shows. Certainly I have a lot of friends in the Fringe who are doing fantastic work, and I wish to go and support them and see their shows, but there are always the surprise jewels in the rough that I come upon, and I'm so happy I got to see them, and they do stick with you. So take a chance. See something unexpected. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. I'm getting the Fringe binge vibe off of me.
Yeah.
You guys have to see something different. So it's Therese. So tell me, you haven't been in the Fringe before.
I haven't performed in the Fringe.
But you've
I've
attended.
seen a lot of Fringe shows. In one part of my life, prior to this, I was a journalist with Radio-Canada, and I covered the arts for many years, so I came to see a lot of Fringe shows, and by interest also, because I love that opportunity to take the pulse of creativity that's happening, and throughout the years, like I've seen so much at the Fringe. And also, I must say that I was housemate with the founder of the Fringe, Joanna Murata. many years. Many years ago, in the 70s and early 80s, we were living together, a group of actors, for many years. And in this house, at one time, Joanna lived with us, and she had not created the Fringe yet. So it was. But it's I think
you were there at the
I was,
beginning.
and I think that also Joanna has always been someone who is very curious, who's like a locomotive with ideas and bringing people together and creativity. So I'm so delighted that
Cool.
to play in the Fringe. Yes.
Yeah, and you get this very unique perspective.
Well, it seems comes full circle sometimes your life. Yeah.
Wow. And you've been a Fringe lover for
Yes,
many years.
yes.
What are you looking forward to about performing in the Fringe, specifically as a performer as opposed to?
I think the excitement of being in a celebration of theater. Because this, for me, this is what the Fringe is. It's a celebration of theater, of creativity, and I'm so glad to have the opportunity to be performing.
Yeah, that's
experience.
wonderful. And we don't get a lot of chances to have multi-generational scripts, I don't think. Like, there's not a lot of them out there. So it's nice to have real characters in every generation, not just the token grandfather or the token teenage daughter or whatever. But
And I think that's something that's really strong about this script too. It offers these roles that are so fleshed out for all of the 3 generations. It's really fantastic.
That's awesome. And I've already forgotten your name. Is it Elizabeth? Yes!
Elizabeth!
I doubted myself. So Elizabeth, are you familiar with the Fringe as an audience member?
Yes. Yeah, I went to the Vancouver Fringe for the first time 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I've done a bit of spectating, but this is my first time actually being part of it.
And what are you looking forward to about being a performer as opposed to an audience member?
Ooh, I think it's gonna force me to really engage. Like this is gonna be my first Fringe binge ever, which I'm really looking forward to, and that's a term I'm gonna really be using. But yeah, I think it's easy, at least for someone like me as an audience member, to kind of, you go to a couple shows and then go home and that's kind of it, and you think about it and it's whatever. But this is gonna allow me to really be engaged in the whole community process of it, which is something I've never done before and I'm really excited about. And I get to work with a super experienced team also who has a lot of Fringe experience behind them, which is going to make it, I know, easier for me to kind of like do all of the stuff that I want to do and kind of like ride the coattails into my first like intensive Fringe, which I'm really excited about.
You've got the support of your cast
Yeah.
to help you through the overloading.
Yeah, and to encourage me to, not just be like lying at home, but be out seeing shows in between our shows. So that's gonna be good.
Reminding you to rest before your show, see shows after your,
Exactly. Yeah, keeping me to a schedule, so it'll be good.
Nice. Cool. So there's lots of interesting things about this script because it is a previously published script.
Yeah.
So for each of you, I would love to know, what do you find the most relatable part of the story? And it doesn't need to be part of your character arc, but what is your most relatable part of the story? For me, when I read that she was sympathizing with the gorilla, I had such an intense experience with the gorilla in a zoo. Just because I went to school in London and we had to do like animal work and go and like study the animals at the zoo. And these gorillas, I was really depressed in my life, and these gorillas were in this tiny little enclosure, and the gorilla was just sitting there, and it looked so sad. And I just remember just feeling such, like, it wasn't like we didn't have a conversation, but I really sympathized at that time in my life with that poor gorilla, and it just made me think of that. So I was wondering, which part of the script do you find most relatable to you? And let's start with Elizabeth, even though you just spoke.
Okay. Oh boy, I'm trying to think of how to say this without giving too much away. There is a relationship that my character and one of my characters and Sarah's character is in, where I'm a younger woman dating an older woman, and there's kind of like a power dynamic and like different kind of desires for where that relationship's gonna go. And I think that's been the most relatable thing to me. I find the character very relatable, probably because she's like a queer woman in her 20s. And there's something in like the emotional depth of that and in the desire to have a certain level of relationship that maybe someone else isn't willing to give, and how far can you remove yourself from the reality of the situation to make it this like idealistic romance, and when do you actually have to reckon with the realities of that and what the other person's willing to give you. And that's like really been hitting home for me through this, which I always appreciate a really like accurate and kind of truthful exploration of a romantic relationship, and particularly with queer relationships, that doesn't happen that often. So yeah, I think that's the thing that's been super affecting.
Cool, thank you. Therese?
Well, one of my characters, Cleva, is an elderly woman who will find the language of her youth, a disappearing language, in this play. And when I was young, our family, we lived with a very small community of 7 families in the forest in Quebec. And when I was around 6 years old, a turn of events, we had to leave that community. And when we left that community, there was a change of language for me, and there was a break in my life. And I can relate so much to what Cleva lives when all of a sudden she finds that life of her youth. Yeah. So when I read that, I thought, oh my God, this is so for me.
Oh, wow. Well, that's beautiful. Sarah?
Well, for me, there's so much about this play that resonates strongly with me. I play a character whose name is Sarah Brody. She goes by Brody. And I think that she is like all of us, a very human person who is flawed and complex and even afraid of the unknown, and has to discover a sort of bravery within herself to face things that are scary and new and different than her concrete plans. And I think also something else that resonates strongly with me is the relationship with the ape, with the gorilla, because I found in my life a curiosity and a kinship with animals, cats. I adopted 2 cats, and I love them so much that I managed to work them into this interview because I adore them.
You always talk about your cats.
I actually always do talk about my cats. But I think that's something so special about this script is the idea of connectivity and communication, and that there is a language by which to build a relationship that is not necessarily verbal. Yeah.
Cool. Mika?
I mean, I think there's so much in the script that you can relate to. It's a really fantastic script with like a lot going on in it. Something that I've been resonating with a lot, like recently, has been there's this monologue at the end that Sarah's character Brody does, where she's talking with the ape, and she's imagining what would happen if she brought the ape home with her. And yeah, it's sort of playing on what you said about this idea of connection without words and relationship without language, and how we can imagine and like build these really important relationships in a way that like doesn't rely on language as its like primary motivator. And I think that's super beautiful, and that's something that's been like hitting me really hard just this week especially, and it's just like such a lovely piece of text, and it's such a beautiful thought, and I think it's so true, because often, and I think especially in like our culture and our day and age, a lot of the words we put out don't mean a lot.
There's a saying, une maxime, a saying that goes, art is a lie that tells the truth. And I think that this play really illustrates that so well, because we have realism with a woman in her 40s that is facing a questionable pregnancy, and then we have an ape, a gorilla, who is part of the imaginary, and who will bring us into another level of thinking. And basically, I think this play tells us a lot about who we are and our society, and I think the storytelling is really great. And I think that's a good reason to come and see the play.
That's a great reason to come and see the show.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say, if nothing else, come for the gorilla.
What other Fringe shows have a gorilla this year? Lily? Come for the gorilla. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. This was a really fun conversation. I got to know a little bit more about the show, which is really nice. I am here with Star Theatre with the cast of Precious Little. It is part of the Dramatic Work series at the Culture Lab, the Van City Culture Lab at the Culch. And I am here with Mika, Sarah, Therese, and Elizabeth. Yes, I got the names right. Proper full names and spellings and all that stuff will be in the description below. Thank you so much for coming, and I look forward to seeing the show.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.